We've got some fresh images of 3I Atlas, a third-ever interstellar object observed from Earth currently racing through our solar system. Something terrifying just happened in deep space that has every government scrambling for answers. For months, astronomers tracked a mysterious visitor called 3IE Atlas as it raced through our solar system, behaving in ways that completely defied everything we know about space objects. But as this strange visitor prepared to leave forever, it sent out one final transmission that has left scientists speechless. What was 3 Atlas really trying to communicate? Are we being watched by something far more advanced? The discovery that shocked the world? It was just after midnight in Hawaii when the Atlas telescope system spotted something that would change everything we thought we knew about space. The automated cameras were scanning the night sky like they always do, taking thousands of pictures and comparing them to find anything that moves. Most nights they catch regular asteroids or comets following paths that scientists have mapped for years. But on this night in late June, the computers flagged something that made astronomers around the world drop everything and stare at their screens in complete shock. A tiny dot of light was racing across the stars faster than anything the systems had ever recorded. The object was moving so incredibly fast that the automated programs ran their calculations over and over, thinking there had to be some major mistake in the data. Within just a few hours, telescope operators from South Africa to Chile were frantically adjusting their instruments to point at the same spot, trying to confirm what seemed completely impossible. The speed reading showed something traveling at more than 150,000 mph through space. To understand how fast that really is, our most advanced spacecraft can barely reach 40,000 km/h, and that's only when they get gravity boosts from giant planets. This mysterious visitor was moving almost 4 times faster than anything humans have ever built. Most astronomers first thought their equipment was broken. But as observatory after observatory confirmed the same measurements, it became clear something truly extraordinary was passing through our neighborhood. NASA quickly gave the object an official name, calling it 3E Atlas after the telescope system that first spotted it. This name was significant because it marked only the third interstellar object ever confirmed by human technology, a journey from the galaxy's heart. When research teams began using powerful computers to trace the path of 3I Atlas backward through space, they discovered something that sent chills through every major observatory on Earth. This wasn't just another piece of debris that had been floating around our solar system for millions of years. The complex calculations showed that this object had come from somewhere near the center of our entire galaxy, in a region so unimaginably distant that light from there takes more than 20,000 years to reach our planet. The implications were absolutely staggering for anyone who understood what this meant. This object had been traveling through the complete emptiness of interstellar space for tens of thousands of years, possibly much longer than human civilization has even existed. During that entire incredible journey, it had encountered no significant gravitational fields from stars, no warming radiation from nearby suns, and no protective atmospheres that might have changed its makeup or path. It had been completely alone in the darkness between stars, somehow keeping a nearly perfect straight line course toward our solar system. The speed calculations revealed another deeply troubling mystery that kept research teams working day and night. Objects that fall into our solar system from the deep cold of interstellar space should arrive with speeds that scientists can predict quite accurately based on the gravitational pull of nearby stars and our solar system's motion through the galaxy. But 3I Atlas was moving much faster than any of these tested mathematical models could account for. Something had clearly given it extra acceleration far beyond what natural gravitational forces could provide during its long journey through space. Even more puzzling was the trajectory itself, which looked nothing like the paths that natural space objects typically follow. Most visitors that wander into our solar system from deep space follow curved and chaotic routes that reflect the complex gravitational environment they encounter as they get closer to our sun and planets when the greatest eye focused. The James Webb Space Telescope represents the absolute peak of human engineering and space exploration. This incredible machine has a mirror larger than a tennis court when fully deployed, and its instruments are so sensitive that they could detect the heat from a single candle if it was sitting on Pluto when NASA made the completely unprecedented decision to redirect this multi-billion-dollar marvel away from its planned observations of distant galaxies to focus entirely on 3I Atlas. Everyone in the scientific community immediately understood that something historic was happening. Webb's first detailed infrared images of the mysterious object revealed thermal patterns that completely contradicted everything astronomers thought they knew about how space rocks behave in the freezing environment of deep space. Natural objects like asteroids and comets typically show random hot and cold spots scattered across their surfaces based on simple factors like how fast they rotate, what materials they contain, and how far they are from heat sources like our sun. The patterns should be chaotic and constantly changing as different parts face toward or away from solar radiation. But 3 Atlas was showing thermal signatures that looked deliberate and carefully controlled, as if different sections of its surface had been specifically designed to handle heat in very particular ways. Some areas remained consistently cool even when directly exposed to intense sunlight, while other sections would warm up quickly and then maintain that temperature much longer than the surrounding material. This kind of sophisticated thermal management requires advanced engineering that simply doesn't occur naturally in space. The detailed chemical analysis conducted by Webb's most advanced instruments produced results that absolutely stunned the research team at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Instead of finding expected signatures of familiar materials like ordinary rock, water, ice, or metal that make up normal space objects, the telescope detected incredibly complex carbon-based molecular structures. These materials looked far more like advanced synthetic substances than anything that could possibly form naturally in the harsh environment of deep space, a surface that defied logic. The incredibly detailed surface analysis conducted by multiple telescopes created a picture of an object that challenged every basic assumption about how things survive long journeys through the brutal environment of space. The measurements of how the object reflected light showed that huge portions of 3I Atlas had an almost perfect mirror-like quality that should have been absolutely impossible to maintain during a voyage lasting thousands of years through space filled with dust and radiation that normally destroy any smooth surfaces. High-resolution imaging from both the Hubble Space Telescope and ground-based systems revealed geometric features that were far too regular to be natural formations. While even the most powerful telescopes couldn't make out fine details at such enormous distances, there were unmistakable signs of straight edges, sharp corners, and symmetrical patterns that looked manufactured, rather than carved by random cosmic forces. These geometric shapes weren't subtle variations that might be open to different interpretations. They were obvious artificial-looking structures that stood out clearly against the typically chaotic surfaces of natural space objects. The thermal mapping data revealed that different areas of 3 Atlas were handling heat in completely different ways that made no sense for any natural object. Some sections remained consistently cool even when directly exposed to intense solar heat, suggesting they contained materials specifically designed to reflect or quickly get rid of thermal energy. Other areas would heat up rapidly when sunlight hit them and then hold on to that warmth much longer than surrounding material, indicating they had very different thermal properties that seemed chosen for specific purposes. Even more unsettling was discovering that the object was rotating with stability and precision that looked actively controlled, rather than the chaotic tumbling that characterizes natural space debris. Most asteroids and comets spin irregularly as they move through space, their rotation patterns constantly messed up by countless collisions and gravitational encounters over millions of years. But 3 Atlas was rotating with remarkable consistency, keeping the same spin rate and maintaining its axis of rotation in a way that suggested some kind of internal system was actively controlling its movement. Navigation that shouldn't exist. The most alarming discovery about 3I Atlas emerged when astronomers realized it was actively and deliberately changing its trajectory in ways that couldn't be explained by any known natural forces. The object was making subtle but unmistakable course corrections as it moved through our solar system, adjusting its path with mathematical precision that strongly indicated some kind of navigation system, rather than just drifting under the influence of gravity like all natural objects do. Natural objects in space follow completely predictable paths that are determined entirely by gravitational forces and the speed they had when entering a gravitational field. Once you know an asteroid's exact position, velocity, and direction, plus all the gravitational influences it will encounter from our sun and planets, you can calculate its future path with incredible precision many years in advance. The laws of orbital mechanics are among the most thoroughly tested principles in physics, confirmed by thousands of successful spacecraft, missions over many decades, but 3 Atlas was deviating from these precisely calculated paths in ways that required some form of propulsion system to be actively operating on the object. The trajectory changes were small enough that they almost went completely unnoticed during initial observations, but they were happening consistently and at exactly the right times to maintain a very specific course toward the inner regions of our solar system where Earth orbits our Sun. These weren't random deviations that might be caused by natural phenomena like gas emissions when ice heats up or gravitational disturbances from distant objects. The course corrections were far too precise and purposeful to be explained by chance or natural forces. Traditional comets can slightly change their paths when ice on their surfaces turns to gas from solar heating, creating small jets that push the object in different directions through basic rocket action. But 3 Atlas showed absolutely no signs of this kind of outgassing that would be easily visible to telescopes. There was no detectable tail, no particle emissions, and no vapor plumes that could possibly account for the observed trajectory changes. Additional observations from the SOHO Solar Observatory detected highly unusual electromagnetic signatures when 3I Atlas passed through streams of charged particles flowing from our Sun. A terrifying pattern. As researchers continued collecting data about 3I Atlas and comparing it with information from the previous interstellar objects that had visited our solar system, a deeply troubling pattern began to emerge that challenged everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The timing, characteristics, and behavior of these 3 mysterious visitors was starting to look much less like random cosmic coincidences and much more like carefully coordinated parts of some kind of planned sequence. The first confirmed interstellar visitor, the now famous Oumuamua, had arrived in our solar system back in 2017 with its own collection of deeply puzzling characteristics that baffled scientists and sparked intense debates throughout the global astronomy community. It had an extremely elongated shape, completely unlike any known asteroid, displayed unexpected acceleration that couldn't be explained by normal comet behavior, and showed light reflection properties that didn't match any typical space rocks. At the time, most mainstream scientists dismissed these oddities as interesting, but ultimately explainable quirks of an unusual but still fundamentally natural object from another star system. Then came 2I Borisov in 2019, which initially seemed much more conventional and familiar because it had an obvious tail and gas emission, like a regular comet. But extremely detailed analysis revealed that it was moving much faster and behaving far more chaotically than any comet that had ever been observed by human astronomers. Its composition was also highly unusual, containing materials that strongly suggested it had formed in a stellar environment completely different from our own solar system. Now, 3I Atlas was displaying characteristics that seemed to combine and dramatically amplify the most puzzling features of both previous visitors. It had the mysterious brightness variations and trajectory oddities that had made Oumuamua so controversial among scientists, combined with the extreme velocity and unusual chemical makeup that made 2I Boris so scientifically interesting. But it also showed clear evidence of internal structure, electromagnetic activity, and controlled navigation capabilities that neither of the previous objects had displayed to anywhere near such a pronounced degree. The mathematical probability of 3 such highly unusual objects arriving in our solar system during such a short time period was essentially 0 if they were truly independent random events with no connection to each other. Recent observations had also identified other potentially unusual objects, including a comet designated C25R2 Swan, which had been discovered by amateur astronomers using the SWAN network of small telescopes distributed around the globe when information disappeared. As the full implications of the 3 Atlas discoveries began to sink in among government officials and research administrators around the world, something completely unprecedented started happening in the normally open world of astronomical research. Agencies and institutions that had initially been excited to share their observational data with the global scientific community suddenly became extremely cautious about releasing any information to the public or even to other scientists working on the same mysterious object. NASA's regular press releases about 3I Atlas, which had initially provided detailed updates about trajectory calculations, chemical analysis results, and planned observational activities, became increasingly vague and much less frequent than the scientific community had come to expect from such a significant discovery. The European Space Agency completely stopped publishing the raw telescope data that independent researchers around the world had been using to conduct their own analysis and verification of the official findings coming from major institutions. The normally transparent and highly competitive process of modern scientific research was being disrupted by invisible bureaucratic barriers and restrictions that seemed to appear overnight across multiple countries and research institutions simultaneously. Proposals for additional telescope observation time were being delayed or outright denied without clear explanations. Major scientific conferences that had initially scheduled special sessions devoted specifically to discussing interstellar objects were quietly canceling those presentations or moving them to closed sessions with severely restricted attendance. Journalists and science writers who had been closely following the story found themselves facing completely unprecedented bureaucratic obstacles and stonewalling tactics that simply hadn't existed during previous coverage of major astronomical discoveries. Freedom of Information Act requests that should have routinely produced standard observational data and research findings were being significantly delayed for months, heavily censored with large sections blacked out when finally released or rejected entirely under vague claims of ongoing internal security review. The information restrictions weren't limited to American institutions and government agencies. Major observatories in Chile, Australia, South Africa, India, and across Europe were all implementing remarkably similar communication policies and data access limitations at roughly the same time, suggesting an extraordinary level of international coordination that was highly unusual for the typically competitive world of scientific research. What we're really looking at, the overwhelming weight of scientific evidence about 3I Atlas was pointing toward conclusions that mainstream institutional science was not prepared to discuss publicly, but that were becoming increasingly impossible to ignore as more sophisticated analysis continued to reveal characteristics that had absolutely no natural explanation whatsoever. Every serious attempt to account for all of the object's observed properties using known natural processes and physical laws required multiple highly unlikely coincidences to occur simultaneously in ways that violated basic principles of statistical probability. The sophisticated thermal management capabilities observed by the James Webb Space Telescope suggested engineering principles and advanced material science that represented technology far beyond anything in current human scientific understanding or manufacturing capability. The ability to maintain distinctly different thermal zones across various sections of an object's surface while traveling through the constantly changing radiation environment of deep space requires incredibly sophisticated internal systems and specially designed materials that can actively control heat absorption and distribution. The non-gravitational acceleration and precise trajectory corrections clearly indicated some form of advanced propulsion or guidance system that was operating without producing any detectable exhaust signatures, energy emissions, or particle streams that our most sensitive scientific instruments could identify. This suggested propulsion technology based on physical principles that were completely different from anything in current human scientific knowledge, possibly involving direct manipulation of gravitational fields or other exotic physics that human scientists were only beginning to explore theoretically. The complex electromagnetic activity detected coming from inside the object indicated the presence of active electronic or computational systems that were continuously processing information, making calculated decisions, and possibly even communicating with external sources or control systems located elsewhere in space. These electromagnetic patterns were far too organized, consistent, and purposeful to be explained by natural phenomena like random static electrical discharges or chance interactions with cosmic radiation. If 3I Atlas truly represented artificial technology rather than a natural space object, it demonstrated engineering capabilities and scientific knowledge from a civilization that was potentially thousands or even millions of years more technologically advanced than current human civilization. The object had successfully survived an interstellar journey lasting tens of thousands of years while maintaining complete structural integrity and fully functional internal systems throughout the entire voyage. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.